No Limit 200, the limit where the money is really, really good. No Limit 200 is where players start making very good money. The best No Limit 200 players make over $100 per hour, and the variance above No Limit 200 is sickening. Lots of people get stuck at No Limit 200 due to the money being good, there being much less games at higher stakes, and the variance above No Limit 200 being very tough to swallow as win rates get smaller. There is a very good mix of regulars at this stake. At No Limit 200 Rush, you would find some bad No Limit 200 and No Limit 400 regulars, as well as some very good ones, with most being in between. So remember, just because a player plays a higher limit, you have a lot of people that rake back grind No Limit 400, which is much less effective than even winning a small win rate at No Limit 200. But at No Limit 200 specifically, since there are so many tables where there aren't always a bunch of tables at all times of the day at higher limits, you get a very, very large mix of regs. Fewer regulars means that there are more opportunities to exploit specific opponents and more opportunities for them to exploit you. Remember, anytime you try to exploit someone else and you're not taking a game theoretically correct line, it gives them the chance to exploit you. Playing against No Limit 200 regulars. There are several leaks most No Limit 200 regulars have. This is the limit I've played the most, so it's actually the one I'm most comfortable with for making this video, and I know most regulars have the inability to make very large bluffs at the appropriate frequencies. There are players who can do it, they don't occur often enough. Range is still way too weighted towards value in general, especially when the other player can have strong hands in their range. I think when players move up in limits in general, they have the tendency to sort of imagine the higher limit is where everyone's super good and your old tricks won't work and everyone's better in balance. That's not really true at all. At No Limit 200, if you can have the nuts in your range, it's pretty unlikely your opponent's going to pull a big bluff, because sometimes you're just going to have the nuts or near the nuts and he's just going to throw away his stack when that happens. Even when you can't have the nuts in your range, people still don't tend to bluff nearly enough. So, keep that in mind for No Limit 200. You're still going to have to take that sort of standard folding line if you're showing aggression at your opponent and your opponent shows aggression back. He's probably not bluffing enough, and then the few players that are bluffing enough, you need to take notes. Afraid to take risky lines which may make additional streets more difficult to play or result in being outdrawn. Few people will slow play a set on a 10 of hearts, 8 of hearts, 5 of clubs flop. Since few people will slow play here, that allows you to bet larger and bet more frequently on a later street because they can't be strong, assuming the turn card didn't put a bunch of strong hands in their range. At No Limit 200, you can still have a extremely healthy win rate. In fact, it might even be best against the vast majority of opponents to sort of just take really obvious lines and not worry about being exploited. So usually, people will take an obvious line and raise a strong vulnerable hand rather than risk slow playing it, because if the opponent's not going to overbet the following street or bluff a huge frequency of the time, there's no need to really slow play there. So even fewer people will punish people for not doing this by overbetting the following street. I already just mentioned that. And people at this limit have an inability to access the entire bet sizing spectrum, which relates to that previous point. People usually say to themselves, should I bet 65% of the pot here or check? That's people's thought processes in a lot of spots. Usually these are the more mediocre regs, so maybe they have a very small win rate or they're breaking even or even slightly losing players that don't know it yet. But a lot of people just have this thought process where they think they have to either bet one amount or check. They don't consider betting all these other sizes. These edges are smaller and require more effort to fix than previous leaks, but $100 an hour is really, really good. So yes, it's not these nosebleed, life-changing, stakes that some people play. But if you look at any sort of reasonable wages in the real world, if you can make over $100 an hour, that is a really a lot of money, and there are people that are going to be willing to work pretty hard to do that.